Hi there, it's me. Just to say, listen, I know the sound isn't great on Chris's mic, but I really didn't feel this deserved to be left on the cutting room floor. I hope you enjoy it. Graham was great. I really enjoyed it. It doesn't last for a hell of a long time. We're working on it. We've got guests in multiple locations, different Wi-Fi, but we're going to standardise at least the headphones very shortly. So do bear with us, and thanks for your support and enjoy.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Yes, the ancient art of sign language.
Well, yeah, you'd make a great mime artist, as you suggested. Actually,
He's listening carefully in case he gets verbally abused. I think there's a lot of dark stuff goes on in Chris's mind. He's very dry, but I think he doesn't forget.
No, the absolute psychopath.
Yeah. Proper like where the body's buried.
Well, he actually looks like he's in a bit of a dungeon at the moment, doesn't he? Sort of like Fritzl's den or something. It's Fritzl's basement.
That's how he operates. That's how he operates. They seek him here. They seek it. Chris, we can't hear you. I can only imagine the obscenities that are coming out from your mouth at the moment. Do you have any headphones? Oh, he's gone. Dear me. Right, let's get going. I'm the boy Hotspur. Welcome to this, another one of those ones. I'm joined by my wingman, Chris, and we've got a super special, extra special guest with us tonight, Graham. So this is another piece of fresh meat from the Substack fridge. If you get a better intro than that ever, let me know.
It's been an awful long time since I've been described as fresh meat, so I'll take that one.
So we're coming out of another win in Europe. Chris, I've got a feeling what you're going to open with. So, Graham, let's start with you. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I had the unfortunate episode of actually going to it. It's my first European game in some time. I tend to avoid them and just go to the league games. But I was arm wrestled by my son into taking him. And I must admit, I have never been so bored. Well, I have been, but it was right up there. I mean, there was no atmosphere in there. What was the attendance? Was it less than 50,000? It felt like it.
I don't have the number, but I don't think they sold out. I think there were a lot of kids in the crowd. That's one thing I'd say.
I think they were selling it to kids for like a tenner, so I'm not surprised. But look, the reality is that Europa League is a poor standard until you probably get to the last four, isn't it? So it was never going to be a classic. And we put out a second string, so you can't expect them to be playing like Brazil, I suppose. Got the job done, but it was pretty unconvincing, wasn't it?
I thought that. I'll tell you what the problem for me was. I'll just get rid of the phone before we get the old zzz noises. The problem for me was I was actually, and I don't want to sound like a 12-year-old, but I was kind of like, oh, hang on, and I've got something to look at, Mikey Moore. And so that kind of distracted me. And it's only when I've gone through the data, which I know a lot of people cringe, but it does tell you the truth. That's the reality. That without Mikey Moore, which is a bit like saying, here's a fabulously well-known painting, but we're going to take out a key element. Without Mikey Moore, that was not good. And again, the way I look at football matches, you look at the betting odds, and you look at the Spurs being a slam dunk. Yet again, there weren't enough areas in that game where Tottenham looked like that they were going to score slam dunk scores. As far as like win by 2 or 3 clear goals, which they should have done based upon the maths. Like I say to people, you never walk past a bookmaker's that's closing down next week. They tend to have a feel of how it is. And for a team that haven't been doing well, I mean, there was an incident with that player of theirs that got sent off. He's been sent off back to back in 2 games now. Things aren't going well for them. They've not won in the league in 3, although they're 5th in their division, but it's a soft division. The days of the Eredivisie being like, wow, let's go scouting for players are largely behind us. But I thought there was an awful lot missing with that game. Yes, we won. It's crucial to win. But elsewhere, performances were just a little bit on the downside. What did you think, Chris?
Completely agreed. As Graham said, I had 3 tickets for yesterday evening. I could not give them away for nothing. So it shows the interest in that game last night. What did make me piss myself was there's Ange trying to play it low, trying to keep the expectation level low for Mikey Moore. And Maddison throws him under the bus by saying, "Yeah, for 10 minutes I thought playing alongside Neymar." So outstanding PR exercise. But yeah, with the penalty aside, the Alzheimer, however you pronounce it, goalkeeper didn't have a tremendous amount to do. And
No.
again, you thought this is European opposition. Who's our toughest game likely to be? Galatasaray. This was another opponent you thought we could flex our muscles and really have a good go at. But with the exception of the penalty, I didn't see us clattering the beans on toast. I didn't see anything hitting the crossbar, and I didn't see the keeper having to play like a bunny on steroids to excel himself to thwart all these chances we were creating. It was really flat. Yes, it was another win. Yes, it puts us third in the table, but there wasn't much to write home about.
I didn't think that they were particularly good, but I did feel that had they had a bit more fortune, because we can't gloss around the fact that they won by dint of a penalty. And no penalties are like own goals; they come from pressure. They're not free. It's not like a gimme. But I thought that we were fortunate that we didn't get hit at some point because they were so ineffectual. Graham, any standout points of the game that you want to hit us with that you take away? That woke you up.
Well, I suppose the two ends of the spectrum, how awful Werner was and how good Mikey Moore was for a spell of the game. I suppose they were the main takeaways, if I'm honest. I mean, surely that is the end for Werner after that. I mean, I was having a beer at half time, and then we saw Johnson cut on the screen come up, and you've never heard a bigger cheer when the big text come up saying Werner had been taken off in his place. It was it was all actually so bad, the cheering. I actually almost felt sorry for him. It was, I mean, he just looked totally devoid of any confidence. I think you've got to pull him out the team without going woke for the sake of his mental well-being, because he looks a broken man to me.
I think you're right, and I would add on that sort of woke trip as well that we can't be talking about. We've got to talk about it like men talking about sport, from my perspective. And you've got to say that he's got the yips. Now the kids won't recognise what that means, but it's like when a darts player suddenly can't hit the board. That's where I first heard the phrase. It looks to me like he's got the yips. He couldn't score a penalty if there was no keeper in there. It'd probably bounce off the beans on toast, as our colleague there said earlier. But the thing with him is, and we've got a fan base who would forgive you for a triple homicide. There are endless excuses, endless love, and enormous swollen hearts and souls amongst them. But this business of, he just needs, no, what he needs to do is almost retire. He's got plenty of money. He's on 160 grand a week since he's been with us. He's been pretty ineffectual. Having said that, he's been outstanding value because he's cheap, like the birds, very, very cheap. But none of that equates to a comeback path for him. He's 28 years of age, and I've been through it with the guys on the thing there at a time 1,000 times. It's all the same. His performance chart, the graph is going the wrong way. It should go from bottom left to top right, and his goes. His form has been absolute toilet since he left Red Bull Leipzig the first time round. Flatlined at Chelsea, went back to Red Bull, flatlined there, and then came to us through the wisdom of the data-driven scouting. I just don't see it. How is a guy who's 28, who's been on that trajectory career-wise for those many years, how is he going to turn it around? It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And he was desperate. His touch, his movement, everything just seemed a little bit kind of forced, and like he was trying not to make a mistake. I think he just knew that he was carrying a bucket full of mistakes and just didn't want to tip them all over the park. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, completely agreed. You know what? When I got wind that Mikey Moore was starting, I thought, excellent, this is what we need to see. But then when you got wind Mikey Moore was starting on the right-hand side, you thought, why are we persisting with something all three of us and 50-odd thousand people in the stadium can identify as not a good footballer? And when they took him off at the beginning of the second half and put Moore on, in that first 9 minutes, he did more in that game than I attempted to say Werner's done all season. You can't polish a turd. You can't polish a turd, and everybody's got to admit that
he's got to go. He's got to go. There's no two ways about it. It sounds very cold. It sounds very brutal. That's a man's career, blah, blah, blah. Well, boo-hoo. You've done very well out of it up until now. If you're a professional footballer who lasts until you're 28, which is frankly unusual, to suddenly...
65 grand a week.
Yeah, but he's been paid plenty of money up until he joined us. It's not like he's come here desperately trying to make sure that his grandkids go to college. This is putting his grandkids' kids through college at this stage. There's plenty of money. He owns all his property, but he's just not playing very well. And the Premier League is a very unforgiving mistress when it comes to players, delivering. You get there's 17 different camera angles on every bloody thing you do. You can't get away with it. There's no place to hide. There were 53,000 odd there at the game. So it didn't sell out. I think I just saw from the cameras there were tons of kids. Like when you see on the usual Premier League match days and you see endless Southeast Asian fans in the audience, and you say, "Oh right, okay, I understand who's in the building." For that game, there was definitely lots of kids, lots of minors, which it is what it is. That's the way that they've deliberately set out to market and merchandise the stadium. That's a deliberate move. And as you say, if they were incentivizing tickets for the Kiddywinks, good luck to them. But you're not going to get the best footballing atmosphere. And I'm not surprised that you kind of wondered what you were doing there.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, in their defence, you could argue, would they have been able to sell a ticket if they weren't giving them away for next to nothing? The kids, I suppose, they may have weighed it up. I mean, if it was a Champions League game, they wouldn't have priced it at that level to entice children. Supply and demand, isn't it? People don't fancy it. It's a Thursday night. It's AZ Alkmaar. It's cold. No, thank you. And it's on the telly. And I've got to level with you. I was very envious of those watching it on the telly.
So what was the match? Go on, sorry, Chris. Go on, sorry.
And it reinforced and reminded us that we don't miss Troy Parrott at all. There were those people saying it was a shoo-in that he would score. If you watch the bloke, he was like Harry Houdini. He disappeared and was never to be seen again.
Parrott, I've watched endless clips of him, and the amount of time, the amount of wasted effort of me going to get the clips, downloading them, putting them together, trying to see if I can string together a montage or something. Because there is from a commercial perspective with blogs and such, there is an interest in say, oh, this is how so and so's doing it, blah blah, and it's laboured. His play is laboured. When he does score, it's kind of. I'm not trying to deliberately take anything away from him, but he just isn't a guy that oozes any excitement. There's no sort of gilt edge to the guy. There's no like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And you just see the numbers pop up. Oh, he got another one, and it'll be like a tap in a fast sort of interchange in the 6-yard box. There's nothing about that kid and it just makes me wonder for the umpteenth time. Makes me question the scouting that goes on. Because this guy was heralded, and I know Tottenham is the home of the heralded player who doesn't deliver, but this guy in particular is just universally underwhelming from the footage I've seen. I've seen plenty of it that I've not bothered to publish because I didn't think anybody would find it vaguely interesting.
So another observation, maybe you can help me out, Graham. I sat in the comfort of my home with a nice beer, and I couldn't make out Bergvall. What he offered last night is he wasn't a central defensive midfielder. He wasn't covering and protecting the back four. Yet he wasn't a Kulu type Maddison role where he was attacking. I just couldn't work out what his primary function was last night and what he was trying to do.
Well, I do wonder with this inverted fullback obsession, it does feel rather packed at the centre of that pitch. You've got Maddison in there who, I've got to say actually, in the first half, I thought he was trying very hard to make amends and try and make himself undroppable for Palace away. It felt like he was doing all he could in his power to try and make an impression yesterday. And whether that kind of took away from Bergvall and rather left him left him behind effectively, wondering where to position himself, what to do. But that middle of the pitch did feel rather crowded when those fullbacks pushed in. And it looked to me a bit of a nothing performance where he didn't know what to do. He was tidy enough on the ball when he got on it, but he didn't impact it. He didn't dictate play. but Maddison kind of took the mantle for that, particularly with the armband on, I think, and kind of emasculated Bergvall, if I'm honest with you.
I think you're right. I'm just scrolling through the sort of pitch data returns on that, and you'd have to say that Bergvall was pretty invisible. He only lost the ball once, hooray! But his link-up passing sort of shapes and all the rest of it, there's nothing there. He didn't really create anything. He really wasn't as fluid. I think is what you were sort of talking about there. He didn't have that sort of edge to him where you thought to yourself, "Oh yeah, this guy's really." Because previously we've seen him kind of moving the ball around a bit, and it's a bit of sort of that sort of holding fulcrum thing where he's pinging the ball out to people. And there wasn't that at all. We got lots of sort of short, dare I say, meaningless passes, where you've got a guy who has good passing accuracy stats, but did he achieve anything with them? And I think the answer is there. No, he reminded me, and I don't mean this is a cheap shot, but despite the fact it was short passes, reminded me of Harry Winks. He didn't actually do anything wrong, but when you look at it, you desperately couldn't find anything what he did that was super good, super nice, that you wanted to see again. I don't think even Bergvall fans, and I would count myself as one, definitely support the guy, but I didn't see anything last night that I thought to myself, oh, wow, yeah, that's cool. It was all just a bit flat.
And I think that same statement could be made of Archie Gray in the exact same sentence. Played again at right back. Come on, if we're going to give this kid some minutes, at least give this kid minutes in the position that he played all of last season for Leeds in defensive central midfield. Yet we seem to have played him at right back, left back, centre back, and he's got minuscule minutes playing in his proper position.
What do you think of Gray, Graham? What do you think of him?
Pretty much what Chris alluded to in yourself. Tidy, I'd describe him as. Footwork looks good. Looks like he's been coached to a very good standard.
to his life.
You know what I mean? You know, this is the world we live in now, isn't it? There's no flair or flamboyance. They've all got fantastic footwork. They can, get the ball out of tight positions, but nothing that's making me think he's going to be the next big thing, the way he was lauded by some Leeds supporting friends of mine who are like, you've got a great player, you've stolen him off us for 40 million, you don't know what you've got. Well, I'm still waiting to see it. I suppose jury's out, he's still young, he's not been given a run, but as Chris said, what is the point if you're not going to play him in his primary position? And the fact he's playing right back, let's be honest, it makes yet another mockery of this decision not to include Djed Spence in this Europa squad, because, we're not blessed with countless fullbacks, and we've got one there. Why would you not include him in the squad at the very least? Seems like yet another bizarre decision made by Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. I presume it's the manager's decision, that one, but...
Well, square pegs and round holes. Caesars have old Uncle Ben deployed at centre back again last night.
Uncle Ben and his magic rice pouch. I found Djed Spence's situation peculiar. They've nobody was looking. Well, the mics were switched off. They handed him a contract extension on the strength of very little that we've seen. I don't dislike the guy, but I'd like to see more of him. And I think that, as you've just highlighted there, he plays in a zone where we are undermanned. Going back to Gray, so the jury for me is way, way, way out. I mean, I see bits from Djed Spence where I think to myself, yeah, this guy could be useful. It looks like he's listening. It looks like he's being, he's really focusing hard. But these are charity minutes, as I always refer to them, because you can't watch a guy get 5, 6, 17 minutes and say, oh yeah, I've made a decision. That's just a glimpse. It's a snapshot. And going back to Gray, I've just ended up, and I went through his numbers this morning. He is amazingly competent. The only other thing you could say to make it worse, and it's going back to that Spinal Tap thing, to say that his punctuality was up there with the gods. He is not achieving anything at all, and it's a massive disservice. And again, I go back to this business with Ange, who I think he's learning it on the hoof in the Premier League. I think the fact that he derided substitutions, and then next minute he makes a tactical substitution. Well done, congratulations. Have another sticker on your yearbook. You made it through another week. But this business of playing Gray, who was not cheap. And as you say, I've got a pal of mine who's Leeds, and he was going, oh, you've done us with that one. Ooh. I haven't seen anything yet. And we can't keep fending off the question about his value, his you know, his whatever, on the strength of, well, you know, it's a bit, you know, the situation with Djed Spence, it's all gone a bit. I find this very tedious. You've got a right back who needs game time in Spence, play him. And then you've got this other guy who needs to play game time in his chosen position in the midfield, play him. And we've got enough weak links in that midfield. You know, Maddison is far from universally perfect. He has off days. Bentancur, Sarr, and to me seems to only work really well with Bissouma, which I don't mind. I like all of them, but I just want something to be reliable. And there appears to be a lack of I don't know what you call it, like uniformity of like talent and fizz with these guys. There always appears to be somebody that's kind of letting the side down. And Bentancur wasn't sensational at all. I think a better side, I think, and this is the thing that a lot of Spurs fans don't want to hear. It's the old, you know, they like to roll out these cliches that protect them and say, oh, you can only play who's in front of you. Well, you should worry what you wish for. All this nonsense is all designed to stifle clear thought and critical thinking. And I think as soon as we play somebody really good, we're going to be in a bit of trouble. Kulusevski is arguably a player that's a first team player that we should be starting with, but we don't. And when he did come on, he wasn't tremendous at all. So there's an awful lot of like, we're a little bit thin, a little bit light throughout this squad. For me, I didn't think the game was amazing. I will confess, Mr. Grumpy, but I will confess that I thought Mikey Moore did show some absolute wow. There's some talent there. And there were comments made on the Substack this morning, people talking about, Law, Best, so forth. I think that's a long way away, obviously. But I think an optimist would look at Moore and think to themselves, yeah, there's a kid here. And how resilient are Tottenham going to be? Because we have to say it because it's Tottenham. Because if this was a kid at Liverpool, we wouldn't be saying it. How resilient are we going to be within the next 18 months when somebody comes and knocking with cash in their hand?
Yeah. Can't disagree with that. That's my big fear. Even when we do produce some talent, you're just waiting for it to be nicked off you by the highest bidder. And that's been most of our history under ENIC, hasn't it? If you go back to the Berbatov years, etc., just waiting for Man United, Liverpool to pick off your best players because we're just that group underneath. So yeah, that's your fear, isn't it? Short of obviously that Halloween-looking freak Amanda Staveley coming in with some big money and
with a big bag of M&Ms.
yeah, trick or treat. It's again, you just fear you're going to get picked off, don't you? But I suppose we're a long way away from that. But he was, like you say, the bright light last night, and you thought, wow. And we may get onto the Palace game, but if he isn't picked for the Palace game with Son out, injured, confirmed now, I think, and obviously we know what Werner can do. When on earth are you going to start him unless with those options?
Yeah. I mean, it's Palace, and we should talk about that because I think we can pick at the bones of the AZ game. I mean, you look at the media today; everybody was just cooing, and yeah, we won, and we're clean sheet and hurrah. I didn't see it like that. It didn't feel like that. You said you were there, and it didn't feel like that. I completely buy that. It's great when you leave the ground and you've won. We've all done the walk up the road. It's cold and you want to get home, and that win puts an extra bounce in your step. But you actually look at the game and you think, look, we shouldn't have lost it. That would have been a liberty really to lose a game like that because they weren't very good. But again, we weren't particularly good, and we won with a penalty, which I know, like I say, comes from pressure and all the rest of it, but it wasn't particularly magical. Sonny, I think, is a subject. He's running out of steam, and I think they're really trying to keep a lid on it because I didn't buy that thigh niggle they were peddling before, and I think that's going to drip through into the language now, where they don't really talk about injury or anything because we know it's cobblers. He's not a spring chicken anymore, and he's just a bit tired. A game a week is more than enough for him at this stage. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's another one of these. He's got an injury. They need another bloody operation or something. But I don't think so. Not at his age. it doesn't stack up. I think he's actually just a bit pooped. And he's playing with a lot of very fit players who are younger than him. The one thing you can't say about Spurs is that the guys don't put in the requisite amount of yards. They're all trying, they're all after it, they're all up for it. The only confusion, as ever, at Spurs is who manages to translate what they're told by the coach into their feet, so it actually makes sense. But yeah, so Sonny won't be around for Palace. We know that. I've got to see Mikey Moore against Palace. It's got to be the right answer. He's got to start on the left-hand side of the park and just be let to run loose a little bit, because they're always very protective over young players. Spurs do this sort of thing where they say, "Oh yeah, we're known for our youth." We're not really. And when we do get young players or inexperienced players through, we drip feed them into the game, and it takes forever. I think we're very hesitant. So you want Moore to start? Anybody else you want to see against Palace, Graham?
Well, I mean, the options look limited, don't they? Because the squad's quite thin, so it's probably going to be more of the same from the second half against West Ham, I would have thought, wouldn't it? I mean, bearing in mind Sarr came on and changed the game, I can't see how he doesn't start against Palace. I think that does give Maddison a problem. I'm not sure if there's a space for him in there. Not sure he did enough last night to justify a spot on Sunday anyway. If I'm honest, it was okay, but
I think that Ange kind of put it on Madders and Adoji and said to them, "You're not getting a rest. I want to see you hitting the required levels. I want to see you delivering the standards and all the other campfire waffle that he spins out." And I don't think either of them did that. And I think that they'll be trying to get as much kip in as possible before Palace. What about you, Chris? Any axes to grind ahead of the Palace game?
We're facing a Palace team that are 18th in the league, not great.
No.
If old stubborn bollocks decides that he's going to do what he's good at and selects Werner, then serious questions need to be asked of him. We're playing a team where we should be putting Johnson on the right, we should be putting Mikey Moore on the left, and if that means Maddison dropping out the side to allow an extra pair of legs in Papa Matasar alongside Basuma, then so be it. I wouldn't be against that because of the form of late that we've seen from Kulu. So I think we've got to go out there. It's a London derby. Dr. Tottenham always comes out to visit, doesn't he? When a team are in need and they're struggling, you can guarantee that we'll always make that a little bit easier for you. So we've got to go out there and show some intent. We've got to show some strength, and we've got to give it a good go. Will we? It's debatable. But,
so Graham, just going to throw back to you. What are your thoughts on Postecoglou and ENIC and all that sort of thing? Just off the top of your head. I mean, and bear in mind, we keep it under 8 hours. Your response, but
I won't bore people to death with it. I'll keep it simple. ENIC have served a purpose. We now need to be sold to go to the next level. We've got to accept this is our ceiling with this ownership, I think. Occasionally he'll have a bit of a play, like we had under Pochettino, but that's more fortune than by design. Just a group of players that came together at the right time. And all right, we didn't win anything, but it was quite enjoyable to watch, wasn't it? And we had some good rides. And I think we'd probably all take that with the odd tin pot thrown in every now and then. The expectations aren't ridiculous. So the ownership needs to change. It's reached they've had 24 years. They've built the infrastructure. If we're going to go to the next stage, we need new ownership. And I don't see us doing a lot under this current ownership. It's never going to change. So I've kind of accepted that. The manager, I'm pretty much on the same page as you guys. I actually had some money on him being the first manager to go this year at the start of the season. I think I got 40-1 on it. I was quite happy with that.
He went into 16s, which I didn't think. That was before. I can't remember what it was about 3 or 4 league games ago. But he just crept into the before you get like 20 or 40-1 bar. He just crept in. He when his stock crashed. Might have even been after Brighton. I can't remember. But he could still go. I don't think he's really going to go. I think he'd have to absolutely implode. But the thing with me is, I don't see all the leaping and whooping that's going on that I see in much of the fan base on the back of the results, because the quality of the opposition simply isn't there. And everybody who played in Europe, for example, and I know that's the nature of the beast, but they've been a bit too bob.
Oh yeah, look, we're flat track bullies, aren't we?
Ask the question: are we actually improving? And ask the question: what player has Ange coached in the last 6 months and actually developed and bettered? And none of our players, you can say, is not done what Redknapp did to Gareth Bale and took a left back and transformed him into one of the best wingers in world football. You look at our players, and Maddison's hit a trough and his form's gone backwards. You've had Basuma gone backwards. Bentancur, a good player against the lesser teams, but nothing special. He's not going to get into any of the top 4 sides. And then you look at the wingers. Johnson's hit a bit of form recently, but for games and games and games, he was dreadful. And then you look at a doggy, a brain fart on a regular occurrences, and he's not coached him to move on. So, and Romero always had those errors in him, always had that rash likelihood of getting sent off. So I sit back and think, what has he done similar to what Pochettino did when we had Danny Rose and Kyle Walker, and he brought through some really good youngsters, and I just can't see that same coaching ability from him.
I'm struggling. I have to say, I have a slightly different take on what a manager's role is, and certainly I wouldn't say they don't have to do anything. They just turn up with their folder, with their ring binder, and say, right, page 1 of Ange Ball is. I don't think that's enough. I think you need more than that, because I was not protective, but I got rather cheesed off with people saying about Ange, about Conte, and about Jose, saying, "Well, you're being paid the big money. Can't you liven it up?" All this business of like, "Oh, you've got to improve. You've got to improve." I don't think many players are capable of that much improvement. Truth be told, I think they've kind of, I don't know about hit their ceiling, but that's kind of, you get what you buy. But Spurs have got a lot of quite youthful players, and players, I wouldn't say young, but youthful players, and players that are being given second bites at the cherry, like Kulusevski and all the rest of it, haven't done fantastic from when they came. Like Vicario, like Kulu, there's others in the side, Bentancur, there's a number of them. I mean, Sarr, none of these guys have made it yet. They're all kind of on their path. And I don't see any leaps forward. I see occasional glimpses, but it's all a bit flaky. And it's like Bissouma sums it up for me. Occasionally he'll hit a wonder goal, but he'll do that kind of like 20 minutes before somebody was threatening to kind of sack him or sanction him or something. It's all a bit hit and miss. It isn't like, I know what I'm going to do. Here's my pen, Vicario and goal, and then you start picking the others, and there's only perhaps 3 or 4 names that you'd absolutely want in your team, and hope that nothing went wrong, of course. But after then, you're kind of winging it a bit. You're kind of hoping. Is there anybody, Graham, that you particularly have a warmth for, or in the squad?
It's difficult to warm to any of them, isn't it? Really, but I think I would say Van der Ven would be the obvious one. I mean, he does, to me, looks like the best signing we've made in an awful long time. I know he's got some deficiencies when he's faced up with an attacker. He doesn't look quite as assured, but he for me, you can't play that high line unless he's playing, because he's like a cheat code at the back, isn't he? Because he gives someone a 10-yard head start and still catch them. And that high line works when you've got someone like that. What irritates me is he plays that high line when we've got Ben Davies and I don't know, Emerson Royale at centre back. To talk ill of the dead. So yeah, Van der Ven for me, best signing for some time. Certainly the best in the last 3 or 4 windows, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, he's head and shoulders above just about everybody. So, Chris, what do you think of Crystal Palace then? Do you what can I tease you, coerce you into a prediction?
It's one of those where you think we should turn up and have the confidence, the form, and the personnel to win comfortably. And by that, I would say 4-1 or so. But you never know with Tottenham, do you? Is it Dr. Jekyll or Dr. Hyde? It's that 2 o'clock early kickoff on Sunday. We're against a team who are struggling. There's suggestions that their manager, who was acclaimed by so many last season, has perhaps got 3 games left before he's booted out. Players aren't hitting the form like Wharton last season, who they signed from Blackburn. went to Euros and was heralded as one of the signings of the summer for 20 million quid. He's struggling for form. They got rid of Elise to Bayern Munich, never really replaced him. But you never know, you could come up against a team on their day who grind out a 2-1, 3-2 victory or something. So my heart says we should win comfortably. Reality, and being a Spurs fan for so long, says that anything could happen.
I've just looked at the bookies there, odds checker, because that gives us everybody. Spurs are generally 5-6. Palace are 3-1, and the draw is 3-1, which basically says they think there might, if there's going to be a surprise, it's unlikely, but it might happen. But they're not as slam dunk as many of the prices of the teams we've been playing in Europe. So if we crawl out of that game against AZ, 1 goal to the good, maybe 1 goal to the good is the realist bet for this game. I think it should be more. I think our chance creation, all that other stuff we keep hearing about, but it's lots of good intention and no bride. It's just loads of bridesmaids. And Werner cannot be placed in the first team anymore. I mean, give him reverse the psychology, if you like. Give him the charity minutes. Give him the 8 minutes to come on and run around and look busy and, get amongst it. I mean, you're overpaying at which point for that kind of involvement, but it actually works out as better value than having him on drifting around for 40, 50, 60 minutes, not really achieving anything and not looking comfortable with a round white thing on that green stuff. He just looks like he's on the wrong shift. He's in the wrong job. Looks like a guy who's dressed for a different career. Just doesn't make any sense to me at all. But finishing it off and getting the goals, I think Spurs, need to start acting that way in the league. And we've only done that against duff sides or sides that haven't prepared correctly for us in the respect of that low block and all the rest of it. So we'll see what Palace do. But as you say, Chris, 18th in the league. It seems optimistic. They're going to come up with anything unless we bungle it and we get that situation like we did against Brentford, where the guy scores a worldie in the first 27 seconds or whatever. So that's where we are. Anything else before we go? We're on the sort of 40-minute mark for those wanting to catch the bus. Anything else from you, Graham?
I don't think so. No, I think we've pretty much touched all bases. Fully agree on the Palace game. I think we'll have enough, barring a complete implosion or, as you say, a moment of world class ability from one of their players, or world class, brain farts, whatever you want to call it, from us. Yeah. We should have enough in the tank to win on Sunday, I suspect, particularly as most of the players would have been rested, I think, last night, and they certainly can't blame tiredness on any reverse on Sunday. That's for sure.
No, absolutely not. Plenty of time to recover. What do you reckon, Chris? Spurs to lose 2-0, draw 4-4? Where are your crazy suggestions?
I'm always non-committal on an actual score. I'll give you a hypothesis and then I'll massively backtrack. I'll
throw us a manky old bone.
Yeah, so I'm going to be brave. I'm going to go 3-1 and I'm going to go for Big Dom to get a couple.
Big who?
Big Dom. Big Dom.
God, dear.
He needs to put a couple in the back of the onion net, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think it's onions for him. That's what I would say. Also, all adds to the flavour of the pot. Right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Graham, you've been outstanding. Thank you very much indeed. Chris, it's been a distinct pleasure. I can barely find the words.
And I haven't been shouting at my computer today.
There's still time.
But when you go to the supermarket to buy light bulbs, know those anti-flicker things where you think, I don't need them, I'll just get whatever takes my fancy. Well, the moral to the story, get them, as it's sitting there like in an epileptic fit.
Maybe that's what caused my seizure last week, talking to you on Zoom. Yeah. Right, thank you very much, everybody. And as usual, don't forget, keep it Tottenham. Thank you very much.
Or so you've seen that so the way we just you know sheriffs and off yeah seal so the not so you we what by the our film fits in the sheriff well some mistake what and we go will now all of the house on it ما إذا نيرو out to milk was new or from second the Philips Thursday so if you know يوم تيجي يوم زين السنة and serious such names there